In this lesson, you're going to learn how to graph a line from using its slope and y-intercept. All right, so let's look at number one. Number one, you're asked to graph the line that goes through this point, and this point has coordinates 0, -4. So remember, the first coordinate is your x-coordinate, and the second coordinate is your y-coordinate. All right, so graph the line that goes through the following point, having a slope of 2/3. Okay, so remember the idea of slope first of all. Remember, slope is rise over run. Okay, rise over run. That's how we define one aspect of slope. And then we can also describe that in terms of change in y divided by change in x. And remember, the slope formula was y2 minus y1 divided by x2 minus x1. But in particular, for this lesson, we're really going to use the idea of rise over run. Okay, so the idea is this. In this lesson, you want to talk about graphing a line by using its y-intercept and its slope. Well, first of all, you have to recognize that whenever the x-coordinate is 0, that point is on the y-axis. All right, so make sure you understand that. So for example, if I ask you to plot the point A, I'm going to call A 2, -1. Make sure you understand first of all, how to plot the point 2, -1 and where it's located. Remember, this is quadrant 1, this is quadrant 2. I'm just going to go ahead and do it this way. Quadrant 1, quadrant 2. I don't want to write inside of here because we may be plotting points. This is quadrant 3, and this is quadrant 4. So you could have a point that lies inside quadrant 1, inside quadrant 2, inside quadrant 3, inside quadrant 4, or they could lie on the y-axis, or they could lie on the x-axis. All right, so this is your x, this is your y. So the vertical axis is the y-axis, the horizontal axis is the x-axis. So if we want to plot the point A2, remember, this is your x-coordinate, this is your y-coordinate. So from the origin, and remember I'm using the word origin, so remember the origin, you start at the origin. And the origin is the point where the y-axis and the x-axis intersect. So the origin has coordinates 0, 0. So from the origin, since x is positive 2, from the origin, since x is positive 2, you're going to go to the right 2. And since y is a -1, okay, go to the right 2, and then since y is a -1, you're going to go down 1. So this is the point A right here. So that is the point. So that is where this point is located. So it's located in quadrant 4. So 2, -1. So if you want to plot the point B, let's say it's -4, 0, -4, 0. Remember, you start at the origin. Since x is -4, that means you go to the left, negative left. Go to the left 4, 1, 2, 3, 4. You can't see it, but this is -4 right here. And since y is 0, you're not going to go up or down. You're going to stay because y is 0. So this is the point here, B. So that's B. So that is where point B is. It's located on the x-axis. Now, if you want to plot the point 0, 7, let's say, 0, 7, so remember, this is your x, this is your y. You're going to start at the origin. Since x is 0, you're not going to move right or left. You're going to stay there. But since y is 7, you're going to move up 7. So this is the point C, which is on the y-axis. Okay? But the point I'm also want to make is this, and I'll do another one, 0, -5, let's say. 0, -5. So the point 0, -5, you start at the origin. Since x is 0, you're going to stay at the origin. You're not going to move right or left. Since y is -5, you're going to move down 5. So this is the point D here. The point is this. Whenever you have the x-coordinate being 0, that point is going to lie on the y-axis. All right, so that point is going to lie on the y-axis. All right, so that's going to take us to the idea of that y-intercept. So the y-intercept is the point on the graph where it crosses the y-axis. All right, and so notice notice this point here, right here, this happens to be the y-intercept. And the reason it happens to be the y-intercept is because the x-coordinate is 0. So if you plot the point, if you plot this point, it better be on that y-axis. All right, so watch. So you start the origin, right? Since x is 0, you're going to stay at the origin, right here. Since y is -4, you're going to go down 4. So this is the point. This is the point here. That point here is the point 0, -4. And I'm going to go ahead and label this 0, -4. Okay? Now, we want to use the slope. So remember, to graph a line, you need at least 2 points. Right now, I only have one, and that's the y-intercept. That's all I have. So I'm going to use the slope to find another point. I'm going to use the slope to find another point. Once I find those 2 points, I'm going to draw my line. We're going to use the fact, though, that slope is rise over run. Okay, so my slope in this case, I'm going to go ahead and write it out. The slope in this case is 2/3, right? Which is rise over run. I want you to notice 2 is positive, 3 is positive. That matters. If they're negative, we're going to talk about that in a different way. Okay, so listen carefully. Rise, think about the y-axis. Rise means go up or down, up or down. Run, x-axis, right or left, right or left. Think like that. Rise, up or down, run, right or left. Okay? All right. Now, when finding the other point, you're going to use the slope. You're always going to start at the y-intercept, at a point that's already known to be on the graph. So don't start at the origin, because that origin is not necessarily on that graph, but you know this one is, right? This point is, so start here. Okay, listen carefully. So I'm going to start here. I'm going to use the slope, rise over run. So I'm going to write it right here. Slope is 2/3, rise over run. Okay, let's do the rise first. We start here. Since 2 is positive, I go up 2. So 1, 2. So I'm right here. Don't put a dot here. Just imaginary. Just think of this as an imaginary dot, but don't actually put it. I go up 2. My run is a positive 3. Since it's positive 3, I'm going to go to the right. So I go up, right, because they're both positive. So up 2, right 3. 1, 2, 3. Now put your point, and that point is now on that line. So this is the point 3, -2. All right, so 3, -2 is that point. And now all you do is draw your line, and that's it. You're done. All right, so this line goes through the y-intercept, 0, -4, and it has slope 2/3, right? So 2/3. Rise, run. Okay? Rise, run. So up 2, right 3. Up 2, right 3. Okay? Very simple to do. Very simple. But the point being that this lesson talks about slope and intercept. So I'm going to go ahead and make these points y-intercepts. When x is 0, you are looking at the y-intercept. Okay? All right, so that's number 1. Let's look at number 2. All right, number 2. In number 2, we have this. In number 2, it's the same idea that we did in number 1. So notice you want to graph the line that goes through this point and has this slope. So to graph a line, you need 2 points. You need 2 points. You need 2 points to graph a line. To graph a line. I already know one of them. One of them is this, 0, -2, which happens to be the y-intercept. And why does this happen to be the y-intercept? Because x is 0. So if I actually plot that point, which you need to, when you plot that point 0, -2, you start at the origin right here. Since x is 0, you stay there. Since y is -2, you go down 2. So there's the point. There's the point. 0, -2. Okay, that's the point 0, -2. All right. Now, from that point, you need to find that second one. From this point, you need to find the second one. To find the second one, I'm going to use the slope. So the slope is 3, right? But remember, it helps. It helps if you think of this as rise over run. Rise over run. So being a fraction, right? Write a fraction where you have a number for the rise and a number for the run. So when I write this, I can write 3 as 3 divided by 1, right? I can write 3 as 3 divided by 1. So there's my rise and there's my run. So from this point that I know is on that line, the y-intercept, I'm going to go up 3 since it's positive, and to the right 1 since it's positive. So up 3, 1, 2, 3. I'm right here now. Look. 1, you skip 1, 2, 3. And then I go to the right 1 right here. So there's the other point. So the other point is 1, 1. All right? And then you draw your line. That's all you do. You draw your line. Now, before I go on, I want to mention this just to show you. You see, someone else could have said this. I'm going to just write it. So we knew the slope was 3, right? Slope was 3. Could someone else had said this? Could someone else had said 6 divided by 2 instead of 3 divided by 1? Sure, you could have said that. 6 divided by 3 is 2. So now my rise is 6 and my run is 2. The point's this, though. It doesn't matter which of these you use. You are going to get that line, that same line. You're going to get a different point, but that point will lie in that line. Watch. So from that y-intercept, I'm going to go up 6 and then to the right 2. Up 6. Watch. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. 1, 2. Right here. Now, I didn't draw the line very well, but that's this right here. That's that point. So that's the point 2, 4. Okay? So it did not matter. Whether you use 3 divided by 1 or 6 divided by 2 or any combination, any equivalent fraction that's equivalent to 3 or any fraction that's equivalent to 3 does not matter. Okay? Just out of curiosity, suppose someone had said this. I just want to show you. Suppose someone said, well, I'm going to use negative 6 divided by negative 2. That's fine, because is it negative 6 divided by negative 2 a positive 3? Yeah. Almost no one's going to do that, but I just want to show you, you will still get that same line. You'll get a different point, but it'll be the same line. So watch. Rise over run, right? So let's start at the y-intercept right here. So I'm going to go, since my rise is negative, you got to go down. All right, you got to go down 6. So watch. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Right here. So that's where I'm at. From the y-intercept, I went down 6. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. And then my run's negative, so I go to the left 2. All right, so down 6, left 2. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. 1, 2. All right. Let's see. Now I didn't. You see how my line, it didn't exactly go through those points very well. So I'm going to go ahead and cheat a little. I should have used a pencil, but I didn't. So that's the line right here. Okay? So I go to that point. All right. So that's it. And that's all it is. All right? So this line has an infinite number of points, as you're aware. But it didn't matter which equivalent fractions you used. You'll still get the same line, but different points. Most students will revert to this one, though. All right, that's number 2. Okay, let's look at number 3. So it's not difficult at all, is it? Not difficult at all. All right, number 3. So you want to graph the line that goes to this point and has this slope. So remember, to graph a line, you need 2 points to graph a line, right? You need at least 2 points to graph a line. I already know one of them. One of them is this point here, which happens to be the y-intercept. And how do you know that's the y-intercept? Because the x-coordinate is 0. That's how you know. So if you plot that point, you start at the origin. Since x is 0, you stay there, but y is 6, right? Y is 6, so you can go up 6. It's positive 6, you can go up 6. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So there's the point 0, 6. Okay? All right, now from that point here, I'm going to use the slope to find another point in that line. So the slope is -3/4. Remember, rise over run. So my rise is -3, my run's a +4. Okay? Rise is -3, run's a +4. So from that y-intercept, that's where the graph's going to cross the y-axis. That's why it's called the y-intercept. From that y-intercept, I'm going to go down -3. I'm going to go down 3, excuse me. Down 3 since my rise is negative. 1, 2, 3. So that's where I'm at, right here. Okay? And then since my run's +4, I'm going to go to the right 4. So 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3, 4. So make sure you put the point in the right place. So that's the coordinates of 4, 3. So 4, 3. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3. Okay? And then you draw the line, and there you go. All right? Just do the best with drawing the line. The dots are pretty thick, and so it may not be exactly where it needs to be, but that's pretty good right there. Okay, what I want you to see also is this. I'm going to just mention this. So you see how we have the slope being -3/4. So you have -3/4, and we wrote it as a -3 divided by +4. I just want to remind you, you could have also said this: 3 divided by -4. 3 divided by -4 is the same thing, isn't it? They're all equivalent. This time, though, I want you to notice my rise over run. Rise over run. Okay. If I start the origin, my rise is a +3, so I go up 3. 1, 2, 3, right? My run is a -4, so I go to the left 4. Okay. 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3, 4. And so if I extend it, you'll see it'll go through that point. So this line, this line will go through that point. Okay? So I just want to show you that there are different, given the slope, obviously almost all students are going to use what they see here, but there might be one or two that may write it this way, and that's fine. In fact, there are an infinite number of fractions that you could use that's equivalent to -3/4. That could give you a bunch of other points. All right, but almost all students will use this one. Okay, that's number 3. All right, number 4. So in number 4, this one's different. So in the previous 3, you were given the y-intercept and the slope, right? In the previous 3. In here, though, you're not given it like that. You're given the equation of that line, and you want to use the slope and the y-intercept. All you're given here is the equation of the line. Okay, you got to remember something, though. Okay, you got to remember something. You got to remember the slope-intercept form. Slope-intercept form. That's y equals mx plus b. Y equals mx plus b. So whenever you get y by itself, whenever you see the linear equation where y is by itself, that is slope-intercept form. The coefficient of x, the number you're multiplying x by, that's the slope. So that number that you're multiplying the variable x by, that's the slope. This constant, that's your y-intercept. That is your y-intercept. All right, and you learned that in the previous lesson. What we're going to do, though, is for the equation that's written in slope-intercept form, we're going to graph that line, not by plotting points. Remember there was a lesson that you had earlier in the week where you plotted points? That's not what I want you to use here. I want you to graph this line using the slope and y-intercept. Don't plot points. And what I mean is don't use that t-table. I want you to use the slope and the y-intercept only. Okay? All right. So notice that this is in slope-intercept form. So the slope is the coefficient of x. So what am I multiplying x by? I'm multiplying x by -5/3. So the slope is -5/3. And the y-intercept, and we'll call that b here, or you could say y-intercept, does not matter, but I'll call that b. B is that constant. So my y-intercept is this +2. So that's your y-intercept. All right? So that's your y-intercept. Okay, so here we go. Very simple. So remember, to graph a line, I need 2 points. I already know one. This is your y-intercept. So that's where the graph is going to cross the y-axis. So the graph's going to cross the y-axis at positive 2. So here's positive 2 on the y-axis. So that's the point 0, 2. From that y-intercept, I'm going to use the slope. Remember, slope is rise over run. Rise over run. My rise in this case is a negative 5, so I'm going to have to go down because it's negative. My run's a positive 3, so I'm going to go to the right because it's positive. Okay? All right. So from the y-intercept, you're going to go down 5. All right, so here we go. From here. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And then my run's 3, so I go to the right 3. 1, 2, 3. So there's the other point. Okay? And that point has coordinates 3, negative 3. So that's 3, negative 3. And then you graph the line and you're done. And that's it. That's all you do. All right? So just notice, though, you had to recognize that this equation here was in slope-intercept form, and so the coefficient of x is your slope, and that constant is your y-intercept whenever you have y by itself. All right, that's number 4. Let's look at number 5. All right, in number 5, kind of the same thing, isn't it? So you have y equals 2x, though, right? So y is by itself. Y is by itself. So since y is by itself, that's slope-intercept form. All right? So the slope is the number you're multiplying x by. So I'm multiplying x by 2, aren't I? So the slope is 2. The y-intercept, remember the y-intercept, you don't see a constant there. See here you saw a constant. That constant was 2, so that was your y-intercept. Here I don't see anything, right? But I want you to remember this. I want you to remember that y equals 2x means the same thing as y equals 2x plus 0, doesn't it? 2x plus 0 is 2x. So your y-intercept is 0. So y-intercept is 0, which is the origin. When we say the y-intercept is 0, that's the origin. Because look, this is 2, this is 1, this is 0, isn't it? So your y-intercept is the origin right there. So the coordinates would be 0, 0. So there's the y-intercept. Now I'm going to use the slope, which is 2 divided by 1, right? 2 is 2 divided by 1. Or you could say 4 divided by 2. It does not matter. Most students, almost all students, will use 2 divided by 1. Rise over run. So from here, my rise is positive, my run's positive. So rise is 2, so I go up 2, 1, 2. My run's positive, I go to the right 1. And so there's the other point, and that's coordinates 1, 2. And so you graph the line and you're done. That's it. That is all you do. All you do. All right, so that's number 5. Okay, number 6. All right, now number 6, here's what we have for number 6. So you're still given an equation, but this time y is not by itself. But you learned in a previous lesson how to do that. So let's go ahead and get y by itself. So I'm going to go ahead and rewrite this here. 6x plus y equals 7. So I need to get this in slope-intercept form. So I've got to get y by itself. So I'm going to subtract 6x from both sides. And so these add up to be 0. 6x minus 6x is 0. And you're left with y equals negative 6x plus 7. So let's put the variable term first. So 7 minus 6x, 7 plus the negative 6x is the same thing as this. So now this is in slope-intercept form. So my slope is the number you're multiplying x by, so that's negative 6. And my y-intercept is b. Y-intercept is 7. So that's your y-intercept. Okay? So to graph a line, I need 2 points. Your y-intercept is one of them. So the graph's going to cross the y-axis at 7, right here. So that's the point 0, 7. And then from there, I'm going to use the slope now to find the other point. So the slope is negative 6, which is negative 6 divided by 1. So that's rise over run. Okay, so from the y-intercept, you're going to go down 6 because it's negative, and then to the right 1 because it's positive. So down 6. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and then to the right 1. And so that point is 1, 1. And so there's your other point. You now have 2 points, and then you graph the line. All right? And just remember, and you talked about this before, so you see that the slope's negative, right? Slope's negative, so this line better fall, and it does, right? The line falls, and it does. Over here, the slope was positive, and the line, as you went from left to right, the line rises, right? It rises. So this rises, this falls because the slope is negative. Number 7. So number 7, we have this equation, and notice this is not in slope-intercept form. So I got to get this in slope-intercept form. So let me go ahead and rewrite this here and do some work. So 8x equals 2y minus 10. I'm going to go ahead and bring and add 10 to both sides. And so when I do that, this is 10 here. When I do that, I get 2y equals 8x plus 10. Okay? Now to get y by itself, I'm going to divide both sides by 2, just like this. What I do to the right side, I do to the left side. 2 divided by 2 is 1, so I get y equals 8 divided by 2. I'm going to go ahead and write it out. So 8x divided by 2, right? So write this as 2 fractions. Plus 10 divided by 2. And I'm going to go ahead and write this here. So y equals 8 divided by 2 is 4. So that's 4x. 10 divided by 2 is 5. And so there's my slope-intercept form. Okay? And so once you get to that point, then you know the slope. The slope is the coefficient of x, whatever you multiply an x by, so that's 4. The y-intercept is that constant, so that's 5. All right? And so now let's go ahead and plot that point. So here's your y-intercept. So the y-intercept's 5, so I'm going to plot the point 5 on the y-axis right here. So that's the point 0.05. And the slope is 4, which means, which I can write as 4 divided by 1, so rise over run. So my rise is positive 4, so I go up 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. And my run's a positive 1, so I go to the right 1, right here. So that's the other point of that line. So I get 1, 9. All right? And so here's the line right here. Okay? The slope is positive. Notice the line rises. So my y-intercept is 5. And then to get this other point, I use the slope to find the other point. All right? Okay, now let's look at number 8. So in number 8, I have this equation. That's a negative 3x right here. Negative 3x. So I want to get y by itself. So let me go ahead and rewrite this over. Negative 3x equals 5y. So to get y by itself, I'm going to divide both sides by 5. And then 5 divided by 5 is 1. So I get y equals negative 3/5 x, right? And I'm going to go ahead and rewrite this as y equals negative 3/5 x. So it's very similar to that other problem we had in this sense. Watch. Well, first of all, the slope is the coefficient of x. So the slope is a negative 3/5. The y-intercept, see, there's no number there, right? So based on what we talked about earlier, well, let me write it this way. Based on what we talked about earlier, you need to understand that this equation, it means the same thing as this, is equivalent to this, where you have that plus 0. So this is your y-intercept. So my y-intercept is 0, which is, remember, the origin. That's the origin. Okay, that's the origin. And so I'm going to plot the point of the origin. And from the origin, my slope is negative 3 divided by 5. So that's your rise. That's your run. So negative 3, since my rise is negative 3, I'm going to go down 3. 1, 2, 3, right here. And then my run's positive 5. I'm going to go to the right 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And so that's the point 5, negative 3. And this right here is the origin, 0, 0. And then you plot the point, you graph the line and you're done. And that is all you do. Okay? All right, now, one more. Let's look at one more because well, let's look at one more. Okay, so this is number 9. So you want to graph the equation y equals negative x minus 5 using the slope and y-intercept. Okay? All right, now remember, to graph a line, you need 2 points. I want you to recognize, though, that this is already, see, y is by itself, so this is slope-intercept form. It looks that negative x may throw some people off right there. So let's talk about that. So I hope you understand that y equals negative x minus 5 means the same thing as this. Y equals negative 1 times x, right? First of all, negative x means negative 1 times x. I'm hoping you see that. And that subtract 5, do y'all see that means the same thing as plus a negative 5? Okay, so sometimes it helps if you write it like this. So the slope, if you rewrite it like this, the slope then you can see is a negative 1. The slope's a negative 1. And you can also see that the y-intercept is this negative 5. The y-intercept's at negative 5. All right, so you got to make sure you keep that sign. See, minus 5, negative 5. Or you can write plus a negative 5, so you see that plus, that negative 5 is your y-intercept. So that's your y-intercept. Okay? All right, now, to graph that line, I need 2 points. I already know one of them. That's a y-intercept. That's where the graph crosses the y-axis. So that's going to be at negative 5 on the y-axis. That's here. Okay? Negative 5. So that has coordinates 0, negative 5. And from that point, from that y-intercept, I'm going to use the slope, negative 1, to find another point. But remember, negative 1 divided by, the slope equals negative 1 means the same thing as saying negative 1 divided by 1, right? Okay? So from that point, from that y-intercept, I'm going to go down 1 to the right 1. So down 1 to the right 1. So there's the other point right here. Down 1, right 1. And I knew that since the slope was negative, the line has to fall, right? But before we end this lesson, I want to just remind you this, though. Someone else, I just want you to see this. Someone else could have said, let's say, I'm making this up, but let's say negative 3 divided by 3. Is negative 3 divided by 3 negative 1? It sure is. So someone else could have done that. So what? You get the same line, different point, but same line. From the y-intercept, I'm going to go down 3. 1, 2, 3. See that? And then to the right 3. 1, 2, 3. So there's the other point right here. I didn't draw that line very well, obviously, but there's the other point. Someone else could have said, and just watch, someone else could have said 6 divided by negative 6 if they wanted to, right? Because what's 6 divided by negative 6? The same thing as negative 1. So from the y-intercept, you can go, see, my rise is positive, my run's negative. So since my rise is positive, I go up 6. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. And then to the left 6. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Let me see, make sure I counted correctly. Up 6, left 6, because it didn't match up. It could be because I didn't draw the line very well. Let me just double check again. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So it's right here. So that means I didn't draw this very well. So let's do a better job with it. You see how I'm kind of off. So just be careful when you graph those lines. You could be off somehow. Oh, I'm sorry. Here's where I also messed up. So watch. So negative 1 divided by 1. I want to show you where else I messed up. No, I'm fine, because 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. I'm fine. It's just that somehow my points are too thick, and I'm not exactly putting them in the right spot. So it's just not coming out very well. Just not coming out very well. So this is a better graph right there that I drew. Okay, and so if you had a pencil, you would just take that other one off. All right. So it depends on how thick you make your points, and then where you, especially this right here is a very thin pen. So especially where you how thin your pen is, it could be a little off. But the reason why I knew it was a little off because I plotted few more than 2 points. But that's it. That's all you're going to do. It's very simple to graph these lines using slope and y-intercept. All right, so that's going to be the end of this lesson. I'm just going to go ahead though and kind of liquid paper this part off to make it look a little bit better. Okay, so after that liquid paper, after you use liquid paper, this is what the graph looks like. Okay? All right, so this is the end of this lesson on graphing a line from its slope and y-intercept.